Hello, my name is Scuria-Herman, and today I'll be checking out the finale to the trilogy, Money Game Part 3. I was going to start this video off by saying hopefully this is shorter than my last reaction to Money Game Part 1 because that ended up being close to an hour. This is a 9-minute video. I'm going to try to get through it as fast as I can, but I am worried it's going to be the same length, if not longer, so I apologize in advance because I know you guys don't like long videos, but wow. Oh, wow. Alright. I'm not going to stall, I'm just going to get right into it. Money Game Part 3. We've watched Money Game and Money Game Part 2, not in that order. Before we start, let me know. I was planning on after this doing Money Ties, but I've also heard people saying that I should do High Ren because I haven't done that yet. So let me know in the comments which one you'd rather me do first, Money Ties or High Ren. Alright, let's begin. This is a very different start. I know. I'm pausing before any lyrics. I know, but okay. For this, you have to give me an excuse. It's been 2 minutes. This one, I think I get a pass on. Pausing too quickly. This is a very different intro than we've seen with the other two Money Games. The extension of it. It is interesting. I don't know. In the last video, in the comments thereof, Ren himself said that this is a direct sequel to the first one, where we saw Ren light himself on fire. Are we looking at a sort of hostage situation where he, the former captor, now that he seems to have faked his death, maybe he has now a hostage of his own? I don't really know what to expect so far, but musically, I'll say this is very different from the other two Money Games. I feel like those were kind of similar, kind of in the same vein musically. This is off in its own world. This is really interesting so far. Obviously, we haven't heard that much of the song. We could see that the lyrics part is actually the most replayed, so I guess people skip this intro part, which is a shame. But I do like the slower pace. I like the focus on the piano. I think that's very interesting. So it's very different from Money Game Part 1 with the maneuverability of the guitar as a prop, because this is a set thing that you can't pick up a piano. Really interested. I just want to give a little checkpoint, show you where I am in my thinking. But yeah, let's continue.
Tell you a story about a boy named Jimmy. 1 year old and his first words were mine, mine, gimme. 2 years old he was walking, 3 years old walking quickly. 4 years old he was running round the pavements of his city. 5 years old and his daddy told him, listen here son, you gotta learn to be a man. A man, he works for what he wants. 6 years old and he's reading, writing, top of the bunch. And when he's 7, his progression made him student number 1. 8 years old and he's praised for unusual grades. 9, his parents paid for private school to nurture the flame. 10, 11, 12, 13, he ascends and ascends. His daddy tells him, son, money is the means to all ends. 14, solving complex mathematical equations. At 15, IQ 150, still elevating. 16, he develops complex software code that detects weaknesses in cybersecurity protocols. 17, and he sells his vision, keeping the share.
Let me before this goes too far, I want to do some lyrical analysis just so it doesn't get out of hand. This is way more narrative driven than the other two. The first one was the whole speech about colonialism. The second one was the whole speech about capital as a system, especially with the whole break at the end, which you could say is more narrative, but the whole thing with shells to oil, that sort of thing, which the comments told me was actual a direct reference to the Shell Oil Company, which I didn't know. But this one is really narrative so far. So there's not going to be much that I can really say about the lyrics because it's very narrative, but I'm going to have them up here. Let me tell you a story about a boy named Jimmy, 1 year old, and his first words are mine, mine, gimme. 2 years old, he was walking. 3 years old, walking quickly. 4 years old, he was running around the pavements of his city. I like the structure. I like the progression of that. It's very interesting. Very innovative. 5 years old, and his daddy told him, listen here, son, you've got to learn to be a man. I liked Ren's performance of that when he said that line. A man, he works for what he wants. 6 years old and he's reading, writing top of the bunch, and when he's 7, his progression made him student number 1. 8 years old and he's praised for unusual grades. 9, his parents pay for private school to nurture the flame. 10, 11, 12, 13, he ascends and ascends. His daddy tells him, son, money is the means to all ends. 14, solving complex mathematic equations. At 15, IQ 150, still elevating. 16, he develops complex software code that detects weaknesses in cybersecurity protocol. This is very interesting. I think that, I don't know, I have to wait, because anything that I would have to say is the trajectory of this kid's life, or the soon-to-be adult's life. And I guess, as we learned with the first Money game, maybe I should hold my tongue a little bit on what's going to come next, but I like the sort of plot of this. I think it's very interesting and very new. I haven't seen this from Ren yet. This style from Ren yet.
Security protocols. 17 and he sells his vision, keeping the share. Not yet an adult, but he's practically a millionaire. 18 and his daddy tells him, now you're a man. This world don't give a damn about you, so take all that you can. 19, he turns a profit, stocks and shares, invest in product. 20, double down deposits. 21, his income rockets. 22, he learns the truth is just an obstacle to wealth.
I like the, I don't know what it's called, but the chord progression, I guess, where it sort of got jumbled there. I think that was interesting.
19, he turns a profit, stocks and shares, invest in product. 20, double down deposits. 21, his income rockets. 22, he learns.
I haven't heard something like that before. I think that's very interesting, especially for the progression of the lyrics and the narrative here. I think that's very interesting.
In product. 20, double down deposits. 21, his income rockets. 22, he learns the truth is just an obstacle to wealth. If you manipulate the data, then the lie will sell itself. 23, a life of luxury, crystal and cocaine. 24, he makes the Forbes list, they're applauding his name. 25, and his daddy tells him, listen here son, while you're sitting in that palace, that don't mean that you won. 26, a business.
Okay. 17, and he sells his vision, keeping the share. Not yet an adult, but he's practically a millionaire. 18, and his daddy tells him that now you're a man, the world doesn't give a damn about you, so take all that you can. 19, he turns a profit, stocks and shares, invest in product. 20, double down deposits. 21, his income rockets. 22, he learns that truth is just an obstacle to wealth. If you manipulate the data, then the lie will sell itself. 23, a life of luxury, crystal, and cocaine. 24, he makes the Forbes list, they're applauding his name. 25, and his daddy told him, listen here, son, while you're still sitting in the palace, that doesn't mean you won. I think this is very interesting. I think that the structure here, what I'm wondering at this point is if this is a reference to an actual figure, especially coming off of the tales of Money Game Part 2, where that was specifically about Shell and its business practices, even though it had larger implications to the larger system. I'm wondering if this is a specific figure that we're seeing. It's very personal to if it was, but it's very interesting. Very interesting. There's not much I could say. I'm going to hold some of my thoughts for later, but really interested in the narrative here. I like the blocking of this video. Again, it's like a one-shot thing, like it was with Money Game Part 1, and even longer this time. I'm gonna shut up now so we can continue with the song.
Now he's 30, his daddy says you're losing the race. You're just a servant to the king, not even in second place. 31, a big maneuver for his daddy's approval. Moving imports over borders from the exports out of Cuba. 32, moving grams, growing kilos to tons. He's 33, filling warehouses with powder and guns. 34, turf war with nobody to stop it. Blind eye from the po-po inside of his pocket.
Okay, my camera shut off for that part. With the last line here, I'm probably going to include it anyway, but with the last line that we saw here, there's going to be a tonal shift, I can tell that, but I want to look at these lines because there is a specific turn here from the rest of the progression that is interesting that I want to take note of before we move on. Specifically at the part I stopped at. 26, his business shifts, he switches business to arms. He's 27, dealing nuclear shells in Iran. This is commentary on the military-industrial complex. It's the idea that his dad in this scenario is like pushing him. He's like, oh, you're not doing as well as you could, and we're gonna see that a little bit more later. You know, listen here, son, while you're sitting in the palace, doesn't mean you won. And he gets involved in the military-industrial complex. 28, inside the Senate, money bought him a seat. He's 29, role of counsel in the president's suite. I think that's very interesting because we're looking at the idea. It's partly lobbying, partly just oligarchical structures in government, in a democratic government, or supposed to be. And now he's 30. His daddy says you're losing the race. The repetition of his daddy is very important for the structure of the song that we've seen so far. You're just a servant to the king, not even in second place. 31, a big maneuver for his daddy's approval, moving imports over borders from the exports out of Cuba. 32, moving grams, growing kilo to tons. That's the part that surprised me when I was listening to the song initially. It's a big escalation, but it does make sense. A lot of the drugs that come in are not from just random foreign nationals, you know, fishing boats and stuff like that. It's from these powerful members of American society. He's 33, filling warehouses with powder and guns. 34, turf war with nobody to stop it. Blind eye from the po-po inside of his pocket. And here's where we get a shift. And I'm concerned about what's going to transpire, but let us see. All right, so we're halfway through. Let's see where we go from here.
35, he gets a call. I'm sorry, son, but it's your father. Had a heart attack, I'm sorry, he's gone. 36, getting pissed off, abusing his product. 37, eyes glazed, disposition demonic. 38, with a prostitute, a moment of passion, heating up a silver spoon and then chasing the dragon. 39, getting reckless and hungry for power. Daddy's words are still driving him to kill and devour. Makes a move against the cartel, but the strategy's flawed. They retaliate and leave him in a hospital ward. A bullet buried in his vertebra and one in his leg. The doctor sighs and says, I don't think you'll be walking again.
Wow. Okay. Again, big swings in this verse. Wow, okay. the presence of the dad in the song is very important because he appeared in every verse, and he was defining his son's life. The idea of like his millions that he accrued, but his dad was still pushing him. 18, you're an adult now, all these things. The fact at 35 that his father dies, I think that's very important, obviously, because it really redefines the entire structure of his life. Okay, I'm just gonna analyze first. 35, he gets a call, "I'm sorry, son, but it's your father had a heart attack. I'm sorry, he's gone." 36, getting pissed off, abusing his product. 37, eyes glazed, disposition. Ugh. That was demonic. The quick just collapse of his mental fortitude that he's seen built up over 35 years. Like, as soon as this authoritarian force in his life is removed, it's very important. These next lines are also important. 38, with the prostitute, a moment of passion, heating up the silver spoon and then chasing the dragon. That was a cool line, it's the thing that A$AP Rock does routinely, taking the metaphor of the silver spoon and taking the act of drug use, I think that's heroin, combining that, I think, is very interesting, very innovative, as I said before. 39, getting reckless and hungry for power. This is the line I wanted to share. Daddy's words still driving him to kill and devour. That's very important because his father's not in his life anymore, but the words that his father said, or the words that he would say, are still on his mind. That's a very important point of characterization. That defines very much so how this entire mental, schema that he has works. And it's very interesting because you could say, oh, he's a self-made man, but he's still chasing the love of his father. He makes a move against the cartel, but his strategy's flawed. They retaliate and leave him in the hospital ward, a bullet buried in his vertebra and one in his leg. The doctor sighs and says, "I don't think you'll be walking again." I think that what we're going to see right now is going to be a very big turn. I think that, again, similar to the end of the verse that ended with pocket, I think that based on the musicality of this, I'm worried for what's going to come next.
Let me tell you a story about a boy named Jimmy. He was 40 and he cursed the words, "Mine, mine, gimme." 41, he wasn't walking. 42, not walking quickly. 43, never running round the pavements of his city. 44, inside a palace with a mountain of gold. But those riches turn to rubble when perspective evolves. Weighing heavy on his conscience is the value of gold. Lamborghini for a life, trading money for souls. Jimmy followed the code inside the land of the free. Put your hand inside the cookie jar, take more than you need. And his example is exaggerated versions of me. And it's a version of him, and it's a version of she, and it's a version of you. There's no escaping the blame. The way we live is parasitic. Fuck the money and fame. Call the music.
Yeah, that was definitely a turn. Okay. Let me tell you a story about a boy named Jimmy. He was 40 and he cursed the words, "Mine, mine, gimme." It goes without saying, it's a direct inverse of the first verse. Inverse of the first verse. 41, he wasn't walking. 42, not walking quickly. again, direct opposite. 43, never running around the pavements of a city. 44, inside a palace with a mountain of gold, but those riches turn to rubble when perspective evolves. And I think that is the point of the song. I think that's what we're seeing here. The fact that he got millions so young and he could achieve so much, and his father was always pushing him to do more and more and more and more and more. He was, aide to the president. He was doing all these things, but his father was saying, oh, you haven't done enough. There's more that you could do. There's, all these things. And then his father dies and his push becomes internal. It doesn't become external. It's not some force outside of him pushing him to do more. It's a force in his head that he can't control, which causes him to get almost fatally hurt. And it, again, changes his perspective. Weighing heavy on his conscience is the value of gold. Lamborghini for a life, trading money for souls. Jimmy followed the code inside the land of the free. I like that because it's a sort of look into free will. I'm not going to go into free will because then I'll be here for another 40 minutes, but put your hand inside the cookie jar, take more than you need, and his example is exaggerated versions of me, and it's a version of him, and it's a version of she, and it's a version of you. I think that answers my question about if this is a real person, and I think the answer is it doesn't have to be. The answer is this amalgamation of all these traits that we see in these people driven by how society is structured, and that is, I guess, what the dad is there for, the external force pressing on you. And this is a commonality between many people, and showing that. It's very interesting. Yeah, there's no escaping the blame. The way we live, it's parasitic. So I like the way that he structured the song, because it's very different from Money Game Part 1 and Money Game Part 2. Because it's not explaining colonialism, it's not explaining capitalism, it's explaining, it's showing instead of telling. It's creating a narrative with the themes that he's showing that demonstrates what he believes the system effectuates.
This isn't entertainment. This is real life. The way we live is lunacy, community, it declines. Hyperpolarized, always fighting, then we divide. Truth is less important than the money that we designed. Money's an invention. Politics from our invention. They all come from people's ideas. Did I mention? Border's an invention. Law and order fuel the tension. It leads to people killing each other. My solution?
Well, before you do anything drastic, let me just look at this. let me look at these lyrics, This isn't entertainment, this is real life. The way we live is lunacy, community declines. This is him stepping away from the metaphor, from the narrative, and directly addressing the viewer, like he did in Money Game Part 1. We're hyperpolarized, we're always fighting, and we divide. Let me check, because the first one I believe was 2019, the second one was 2021. This is 2023. It's following the sort of pattern. I think the political state of the world when these songs were coming out is important to note. Because 2019 is the first term of our current president. 2021 in the wake of a pandemic where a lot of the economic stability was popping up. 2023 during the race. It's October. So this was near the end of the presidential race for the 2024 presidency, the one that we're currently under. I think that's important to recognize. I know that he's British, but unfortunately, American politics does affect world politics. So I think that's important to note. Obviously, these years, British politics was also contentious. I know that a lot of bad stuff is happening over there as well, but I'm just not as well versed on it. Truth is less important than the money that we designed. Money's an invention. Politics from our invention. They all come from people's ideas. This goes back to the idea I was talking about in Money Game Part 1, where I was talking about the value of currency, or the applied value that's not intrinsic. Did I mention borders and invention? Which brings us back also to Money Game Part 1 with this idea of immigration and colonialism. Law and order fuels the tension that leads to people killing each other. My solution, everything... Well, I haven't gotten up to that part. We don't know the solution. So... But yeah, law and order is also very important to note the phrasing of that and who says that. Alright, we're almost done. Really worried what he's going to do with this gun, but...
Everything is subject to change. We could build utopias if individuals were taught to use their brains. But if we teach kids in schools to always be sheep and put themselves before the herd if there's more money for me, then there's no future I see where the humans survive. We're parasites inside a petri dish with cannibal minds. Mold will grow upon the surface and consumes till it dies. And our fate could be the same without this story to the wise. "45. Jimmy comes home out of the rain, soaking wet upon a wheelchair, drinking again. He is everything he wants, he is fortune and fame. He's a fortunate fool with an unfortunate fate. With a 45 caliber aimed at his brain. 45 a fitting number cause his age is the same. Here's the words of his father, it's such a damn shame. Then he presses on the trigger of a money game.
Presses on the trigger of a money game. Rain, rain, rain. The rain that comes our way. Wow, okay. My solution, everything is subject to change. We could build utopias if individuals were taught to use their brains, but if we teach kids in schools to always be sheep and put themselves before the herd, which we saw in the first verse, is how this character was treated. If there's more money for meat, then there's no future I see where the humans survive. We're parasites inside the petri dish with cannibal minds. Little history about the petri dish real quick. It was, if we're talking about penicillin, it's an accident. It wasn't really meant, so calling that parasite, if that, it's obviously, that's just the first thing that came to my mind. It's obviously not necessarily what he's talking about here, but penicillin being an accident is important to note when he's talking about we are parasites inside a petri dish. With cannibal minds, mold will grow upon the surface and consumes till it dies. And our fate could be the same without the story to the wise. 45. Jimmy comes home out of the rain, soaking wet upon a wheelchair, drinking again. He has everything he wants, he has fortune and fame. Such a fortunate fool with an unfortunate fate, with a 45 caliber aimed at his brain. 45, a fitting number because his age is the same. Here's the words of his father, it's such a damn shame. Then he presses on the trigger of a money game. So even in his final moments, his father is still defining the way he lives. Or the way he dies. And then it leads right back into the first one, because then he presses on the trigger of a money game. Wow. That was a heavy song. Because we saw this kid grow up and just have so much promise. His father was, beating down on him, pressuring him. Then his father died and he didn't know what to do with his life and it all collapsed around him and he realized the flaws way too late. And by then, the rain came his way. Oh, wow. Well, it seems like the comments didn't have much to say. Yeah. Wow. It's an emotional song. Alright. Well, hopefully this is shorter than the last video. I can't make any promises, but hopefully it is. Thank you all for watching. If you're new here and you want to see more, the best way to tell me that is by subscribing. And if you didn't like it, then let me know what I could do better. Or don't. It's up to you. I'm stalling for some reason, I don't know why, but that's gonna be all from me either way. So until next time, adieu.